All right.
Excellent. Here we are.
All right.
Okay, welcome everybody to our fifth live Zoom talk on birds and birds, really, bees and homesteading. And thank you for joining myself and Warwick from Beware and myself from Self-Sufficient Homesteading and Gardening. And today we have a wonderful guest speaker. Her name is Zonelle Morkel. Zonelle, please wave for us so we can see you. There we go. Zonelle is an absolute urban gardening legend. And I had the honor of visiting her the other day, and I was walking through her urban garden, and it was like I was walking through this fantasy world, because I was walking on the right hand side, I could pick a berry and I could eat it. On the left hand side there was a bean I could pick and eat, and on the right hand side there was something else, and it was just all these things in her garden, and it was like a little piece of heaven in the middle of Centurion. So she really has a lot of knowledge about urban gardening and seed varieties, and she has started a project. It's called Bestowed in Abundance. It is the biggest seed swap in Africa, and that's what we will be talking about today. Welcome, Zonelle. We are really glad to have you with us, and everybody else, welcome too.
Thanks. Lovely to be here.
Yes. All right. Zonelle, tell us, where did this idea come from? This idea of having the seed swap and it being so big.
I didn't expect a big.
Does size matter? Yeah, it does.
It does.
I didn't expect a big at all. But it was a lovely surprise. About a year or so ago, I started interacting with people from, well, quite frankly, all over the world with regards to seed collection, I guess is what we can call that, because I am a very avid collector as well as then gardener. So I actually saw the idea in Australia and America. They very often run these huge swaps, which then are for everyone that are capable of sending in seeds, and then it gets redistributed into different boxes, and you get back this lucky packet of amazing things, which quite frankly, very often you can't even imagine, like, how are these things available. So I was very envious every single time I saw these people like doing these huge swaps, and I wanted to be part of it so badly, but there wasn't anything like it in South Africa. So I've decided that perhaps I should try and give it a go, because a huge part, I believe, when you start gardening is you an air of generosity is created, and you want to share, and you want to interact with other people that also garden and also collect and also grow interesting things. So it's just a beautiful all-round cycle, if I can call it that. So I thought I'd give it a go. And about a year ago, I think around exactly this time, I think last year, August, I tried to get a seed swap like this off of the ground, but there weren't a whole lot of interest. And then with lockdown coming around, and I guess I felt I had a bit of spare time on my hands, I thought I'd give it another go. And this time around, the reception of the idea of the seed swap was huge. It was overwhelming, quite frankly. And the group very quickly grew from, I think, 50 people that was in there around the start of lockdown to I think we're around 1,200 or 1,300 people in the group now. And
Brilliant.
now I am forced to cap the amount of participants per swap. So the concept is you sitting, regardless of where you are in South Africa, you send me whatever you have too much of, whether it be seeds, whether it be cuttings, whether it be things that you make from the garden or make for yourself or would like to share with other people. You send in that box. I receive all the boxes here in Centurion, and then the big sorting happens where I then reallocate into your box. So if you send 10 varieties, I send you 10 varieties back, for instance. And so that enables us to share with people from across the country, even people in a little bit more far off locations, like Tanya, who isn't always capable of swinging around in Centurion. Although when she does, she's promised she'll always come and see me.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
But yeah, so it's people, I think, to me, the biggest need was people that feel like they're like on a farm somewhere, I don't know, in the middle of the Karoo or whatever the case might be, and they don't have the opportunity like I do here in Centurion, where I've collected a few plant people and we get together once a month-ish and we have a swap and a share and everything. So for people that wanted to experience that is like why I felt there's a big need for us to generate this.
Okay.
So there's currently one running. The deadline for me receiving all the boxes is by the end of next week. And then it will go out by mid-September. And then I'll start up the next round again because the interest has grown so much that I now have to run them back to back.
Okay, brilliant.
That's
Okay, well,
amazing. Congratulations.
absolutely.
Thanks.
It's quite
Yeah.
interesting to me because I saw the start of this project and I saw in the beginning people were hesitant. They didn't show any interest, but what was great for me was that you didn't give up and you just started instilling this idea of preserving seeds, swapping it, that generosity we're talking about. And just, guys, this is a great thing to do. And I think the absolute sheer joy that the people got by just receiving their box, and a lot of people by sending their box, because it's so lovely sharing. Nothing in life is fun or good if you can't share it. If you just keep it all to yourself, you sit on your mushwip there and you're all miserable and you just have you have everything, but you don't have that spirit of sharing. And it was really great for me to see that you did not quit. You kept on going because the first time was nobody really knew what to do, what to expect, etc. And now it's exploded. So tell me quickly, how many participants are you capping the swap for?
Oops, my setup seems to be a little bit faulty still. Anyway, I was supposed to cap at 50, but the total number for taking part in this specific round, it ended up to be 58, including me, because
That's
I have
wonderful.
an issue with being strict. Sorry for my bad skills right now. It's gonna work sometime.
I can see your computer swimming, or is it your phone, or?
It's my
All right.
phone because my laptop doesn't want to do what I need it to do.
Okay. Tell me another thing. I also saw that you are doing a children's swap. Please tell us about the children's swap.
I think when we're starting to talk about gardening and whatnot, it's really important to get kids involved as well, quite frankly, soon as possible. So it was actually instigated by two participants in my previous swap. Elizabeth van Tabber, who sent in an amazing box last time round. She's not participating in this round, but her box is incredible. She decided to sign up her boy. Oh my goodness, I'm so bad with names. But anyway, she signed up her boy because he has his own seed collection as well. And she wanted him to also learn the concept of, I guess, to a certain degree, well, this is assumptions I'm making, but to share. So we have something and we maybe have too much of something, and then we share with people that don't have it. So she signed him up as an actual participant, and then another member commented on him being signed up, saying like, oh my goodness, this is a brilliant idea. She'll send in some stuff from her kids as well. And kind of that sparked the idea of then doing a kids swap. So when you're a participant as an adult and you have kids, you then sign up your kids, and they then contribute whatever they can. And we have a few adults that jumps in and we put together a tiny little package. So each kid that gets signed up then gets their own little box with their own few seeds or whatnot in it. and then they feel that joy of receiving something as well, and it's theirs, and they take ownership of it, and then they plant it and they grow it and they learn from it. It's an amazing learning experience for the kids, in my personal opinion. We need to get kids excited about gardening, and I feel this Kids Swap very much does that.
Okay, that's fantastic, because
Yeah, love
it
that.
took some time to get the adults going. So if we get the kids going from such a young age, then that is a good idea too. Tell me quickly, you also said that there's different types of currency. If you don't have seeds, what's the weirdest currency you've received? I just want to share, if I talk about currency, there were some people that did not have seeds to share. So Zonelle opened it up so you could send something else in order to get seeds back. What is the weirdest things you've received as seed currency, as swap currency?
Well, I think you are the culprit. I just received some amazing red reglars, which is incredible, because I had a few people that are tempted to start their own worm farms, and they're like, Zonelle, where do I get worms from? And I'm like, I got someone.
Great.
Yes. So Tanya just sent in some worms for this round. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'll try
That's great.
to keep surprise you. All right. Yes. Warwick, talking about seeds and currencies and swapping, and do you have something you want to share with us today?
Yeah, just before we came on, you and I were talking about a couple of things, and one of them was a project we're looking at doing, which is something along the lines of, we haven't decided on a name yet, but it's the concept's basically seeds for bees, right? Basically so that people can plant flowers and veggies and fruit trees and things like that, edible flowers and plants, and then veggies and fruit trees that can actually benefit the bees, and vice versa. So the combination of the two things being put together is why we also thought it'd be fantastic to speak with you, Zonelle, as well today, because the work that you guys are doing, indirectly, benefits all the pollinators as well, just as much as it benefits the people who are being able to harvest great food and different kinds of foods and veggies and stuff like that. Do you ever get asked, by the way, about the kind of bee, seeds for bees or something like that? Do you ever get asked, like, what seeds are going to be the best for pollinators?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about the swap is everyone kind of sends in what they have too much of. I mentioned that before. And then it's now creating a community where relationships are being built. So it's now starting to become, especially since spring is coming up, where people are now starting to post like, oh, I've got this thing growing and it's amazing for the bees. So for instance, one of my top bee plants in my garden specifically is when my goldenrod is in bloom. So I sent goldenrod in the last round to literally every participant received some goldenrod. It pretty much grows like a weed, which is what makes it perfect for bees. And the clusters of flowers are quite spectacular. So it's a beautiful thing to have in your garden. And there's not a single time that I walk past that plant while it's in bloom that it's not completely covered in bees. It almost looks like I have a beehive. That thing is
great.
So yeah, I've shared specifically for the purpose of bees, because bees are so incredibly important in especially our home gardens. I feel we very often start a garden when we're living in the city or in a town or whatever the case might be, and it kind of feels like there's no bees. I certainly felt that before I started gardening. I was like, where is there bees in Centurion? Where are they at? Because they're not in my garden. So I was kind of sad about that. But I've picked up on a few things which the bees truly love. The other big get, and it runs throughout the entire year, which makes it absolutely beautiful, is perennial basil, because I just let it flower all the time. I actually don't eat it. I just grow it for the bees. And I have a few bushes tucked in everywhere, because the bees pollinate your plants. So without the bees, a lot of the plants won't be bearing fruit. So it's very important to have the pollinators.
That's right.
I've recently had a few people expressing interest in getting bees. But then because they're in an urban area and a few of them have small children, oh my goodness, English is tough.
Those things, small things.
Those little people, mini me.
So tiny humans, they're worried about the tiny humans and the bees being a problematic thing. But the truth is bees are very docile. I mean, when I walk in my garden, Tanya's been in my garden is very tiny. So there's very little space for humans to walk through.
There's just plants everywhere.
Especially in high season.
Yeah.
So you're brushing past the bees, you are like touching them essentially, because they're kind of like infatuated with whatever they are happy with at that point in time. And you're brushing past them, and I've never been stung in my garden. If I do get stung, it's because I accidentally step on a bee without realizing, or I think it's a fly and I try and brush off the fly and it scares the bee. So bees are, in my personal experience, pretty docile, but I honestly don't know about restrictions regarding residential areas and beehives and such like that, things like that. But I do encourage people to, at least if they then don't have a beehive, then to just plant plants for the bees to enjoy. Borage is another very easy one because it's self-sowed.
Yeah.
And the bees adore it, and then the borage itself has got some medicinal uses for us humans as well. But typically when I find a plant is overrun with bees, I kind of then don't use it for myself. I kind of just let it flower so that the bees can enjoy it, because there's a lot of other things that I can eat.
And in her garden, there is really a lot of things she can eat. Very much so.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, so with our project that we're looking at doing, we've been sharing about it here and there, you know, on a couple of these talks, just sort of spotlighting it. And what we even from the beginning, Tanya and I were talking about how we could look at putting together something around with the self-sustainable gardening and homesteading, you know, that we were looking at doing something around seeds with bees, because it's one thing talking to people about growing stuff, but in order to grow, it's like bees, you know, you need, in order to have in order to keep bees, you need to have the hives, but you need to actually have bees. You know, the queen needs to be there, colony needs to be in place, and you can't keep bees without bees. It's the same with plants, you know, you can't grow plants without seeds. Cool.
Yes.
But educating the kids with that I think, you know, really, it's primal, actually. I think I was actually reading something last night that was talking about how just in 50 years, for example, it's not South African related, but maybe there will obviously be some statistics and some correlations, but this stuff was from America, where it was talking about just in about 60 years, so from 1950, 1940 or so, give or take, 40% of the Americans actually grew their own food, most of their own food. Okay. And so this article that I was reading was actually about the challenges now during COVID and this pandemic and everything of supply chain. That's what it was actually about. And that it was talking about how cities like New York only have a 4-day supply. That's it. It's an island. It's actually an island to itself in terms of food supply, right? So you can imagine if something ridiculous like 60% of the goods and services basically that New York survives on gets trucked in by long distance truckers. Okay, so if something happened to their major road works and something like that for more than 4 days, guess what?
Yeah, nobody's got food.
No food.
Yeah.
For an entire city of like how many millions of people, right? And New York's not the only one. I mean, that was the one I can remember. I think I can't remember the other one in particular. It was Chicago or something like that. But or LA, I think it was LA. 3 days. It's like literally an island, an urban island within.
Yes.
You know, on mainland. But it gets treated and it'll be seen as an island, effectively a food island. And I mean, our main mission at Beware, our motto is harnessing nature's biodiversity, but our mission has actually always been like food security. The byproduct of that for beekeeping and beware for our customers is largely, being able to benefit from generating an income through that. But the first and foremost is food security, because without any food, and I'm also a strong believer, it's another reason why Tanya and I also met up and we've partnered up for these talks and stuff, is the fact that I think there's such a risk now in actual food security, because what's happening is that a lot of our food is being controlled and manipulated by big corporate business, including the seeds, which I'm sure you're pretty aware of, right? And if you want to, we can have a bit of a conversation about this. I don't know if you guys, but yeah, our point is that I think that if we can grow seeds that are heirloom seeds, and what I mean by that, for anybody that isn't sure, is that an heirloom seed is one that is basically come from, and you guys can correct me as well, please. It comes from basically an organic, non-GMO parent plant, right? That's how I understand it.
That's been passed on.
You guys want to add on to
generation? Yes.
It's an heirloom seed. So somebody 200 years ago was growing the same seeds that somebody's planting today, right?
Yes,
That's more or less what, not manipulated. Aside from the very basic kind of format of manipulation, which is if one seed grows faster than a seed next to it, you kept the seeds from the one that grew from, better the one next to it. Aside from that, which is rather very low key genetic, what do you call it? Selection.
So that's
other
selection
than
and
that's
not
selection, not
modification.
modification. Yes.
There we go.
So heirloom seeds for me is phenomenal, because what's happening as well, just want to add to this from my perspective, and then I'll hand over to you guys, is in a lot of these GMOs, not only they're trademarked or patented, okay, they're the seeds themselves, which means that you can't buy them. You're not allowed to use them unless you actually can prove that you bought them from the company if you sow them. And there's even been cases in Europe, for example, there's been cases where farmer A, who did not buy the GMO seeds, had a farmer B who was next to him or her that bought the GMO seeds, and because pollination takes place, and when pollination takes place as well, there was cross-pollination on a percentage of the farmer A's crop, the non-GMO crop, right? But because of that, that farmer's next season, when they collect their own seeds, because this is the other thing, farmer B can't collect his own seeds or her own seeds from the GMOs. They have to go back to the company and buy them again, right? You can't collect the seeds or sell them, nothing. Those seeds do not belong to you as the farmer. Non-GMO farmer A, though, free reign, except for when there was the pollination, wind pollination and cross-pollination from farmer B. Not farmer A's problem or fault, but now he or she is benefiting from whatever genetically modified functions or features has gone on farmer B's crop, right? So now farmer A gets sued by the big company because they've stolen patent technology, right? I mean,
it's absurd.
How ridiculous is this? So now farmer A goes out of business. And farmer B perpetuates the whole problem of then buying farmer A's land and planting the GMOs again, or her GMO again.
Yes. That's what makes the swap so wonderful for me, because it's something that I don't think can be easily stopped. I know there's some resistance to like in the States, there's resistance to making vegetable gardens in some of the states in your property.
Yes.
And that whole movement of turning your lawns into gardens, and this whole thing of swapping, I don't know how they will be able to stop this, because it's not businesses selling, it's people swapping and it's people sharing. So as long as this generous spirit is alive, the seeds will be alive, because people will be sharing and people will be rebels, as if I can use that words, and just rebel against the system of we have to do the following, we're not allowed to do that, and there will be people that will be true believers in in this whole thing of food security, and we have to look after each other, and it will survive. I'm 100% sure of that. Between all the people that are swapping. Yes. Yes.
So what Tanya is referring to in America, where certain restrictions prevent people from growing food gardens, and the claim is it's unsightly, and that's not the truth at all. If your garden is in full production, I promise you there's no prettier sight. But regardless, that's where the term guerrilla gardening were coined, where people are just saying, well, it's like guerrilla warfare. We're going to do it either way. We're going to do it illegally. No one's going to know who did it. No one's going to be able to trace us. But this is what we are going to do because it needs to happen. I just want to go back to when you mentioned heirloom seeds. So heirloom seeds, I know I'm no technical expert, and sometimes I mix up my numbers a little bit, but specifically heirloom seeds are seeds that have been around for more than, I want to say, 30 years. So then it qualifies as an actual heirloom. There's a few discrepancies between terminology, and I think a lot of people don't educate themselves regarding the terminologies, and that sometimes causes some misunderstandings. So there's, for instance, a tomato company. The first one that jumps to mind is the Wild Boar Farms. They produce the most like amazing tomatoes you have seen in your entire life. It's like every color under the rainbow these guys produce. And what they do is they use genetic selection, is then the word I'm going to use for that, because what they then do, they say, okay, I have this tomato that tastes amazing, and I have this tomato that looks amazing, and I'm going to marry these two by means of purposeful cross-pollination, and then it generates what we call a hybrid, because it takes a little while for that seed to stabilize and to consistently produce the same shape, taste, and color. Okay, so a hybrid is not a bad thing either. Hybrids occur naturally in nature. If humans were not to intervene, it would occur in any case. So I just want to clear that, because there's a lot of terms that when you hear it, people go, oh no, it can't be. And there's a lot of misconceptions. I find in South Africa, because we have very limited ranges, and only recently has it really grown into something bigger, where they realize people want to grow tomatoes that's not just red. So now we're getting in green tomatoes and yellow tomatoes and orange and purple and black and blue, and it seems like out of this world. And your first instinct, when you don't understand the biological process of how plants reproduce and how they interact with each other, you might feel like, oh my goodness, this has to be GMO, because it's so far removed from what we are used to. Because for years and years and years in South Africa, the only tomato you saw, it was round and it was red, and that's it. It was maybe big and it was small, but that was your options. So now when you are confronted with the idea of a purple tomato, a lot of people react, oh my goodness, this has to be GMO. No, that guy is an heirloom that, because it didn't produce as much, and because it's not as shelf stable, and because and that then influences the traveling of this fruit, which makes it really difficult, which is why we rarely find heirlooms in shops. Because of that, they've selected other types, or they genetically modified then other types, which would allow for the tomato to be picked greener, to travel the distance it needs to travel via truck or air or whatever, because sometimes you'll notice you buy stuff in the shops from Spain or Egypt or wherever, so obviously that was by air travel, so that it lasts until it reaches my house, and then it needs to last a little bit longer, because if I pay the money I pay for it, I don't want it to go bad within a day. With heirlooms, that's not a possibility. Because they are more fragile, the skins are thinner, they bruise more easily. So then people went like, what's the point of growing heirlooms if I can't get it to market? So now we are reintroducing purple carrots, which actually was the original color of carrots, but people found the orange one more preferable. Yeah,
and so over the last 200 years or so, the original carrot has literally almost disappeared off the face of the consumer's plate.
Yes.
Right? And so now when it gets reintroduced, people are like, what have you done to the carrot? And actually the question is exactly, how
We're
did the
reverting
carrot
back.
go from purple to orange?
Exactly.
You know, where, you know,
Yes.
so it's in reverse. It's like, whoa, hang on.
Yes.
And then when I first figured this out, I was like, no, is this like just a joke? You know, like a social media joke or what? And then I went back and I was like, I started looking on the history of this, and I was like, oh, because I follow a lot of stuff because of the bees. You know, I follow a lot of stuff
Yes.
about growing and pesticides and insecticides and all this sort of stuff. And there's a big court case now in Europe where Bayer and Monsanto are trying to take the European court to court again, because the court has just won a couple of things. They've won what's it called, Disophate, the Roundup. I think it's Roundup they've banned Roundup, and they've also used banned glyphosate as a
glyco. Sorry, my brain misses the rest of the word. Glycophosphate, anyway, the harmful chemicals that are used to produce these.
And it's ridiculous, because at the end of the day, it's you know, that stuff's actually not only is it doing harm to the, you know, what's actually, they say it doesn't doesn't get absorbed into the food. But come on, man, anything that's going to be watered or onto something that's going to grow, it's very likely to absorb it. That's why you can't plant anything near where there's been lead before, you know. So you can't tell me, if you can't do that with lead, which is a much more harmful thing, and you know, still present in the soil, that a plant's not going to know the difference between, I know I mustn't take lead, but I can take Roundup. Ooh, great, let me do that. You know, it's not going to know the difference. But the other thing for me is that the GMOs, you know, what I've read lately about them is that they actually have built-in pesticides. So what ends up happening is that, genetically speaking, that one of the modifications now is that in the pollen, they and within the plant itself even, because some of these what do they call, warrior worms or something like that? I think they're called warrior worms in the States anyway. They're pretty difficult to obviously to control and manage. But what these GMOs have done is they've managed to put in the plant a chemical on a DNA level that will actually kill this worm off. Now, if they're able to do that and it kills the worm off, you know, what's happening to the pollen and the nectar that's coming off that same plant? All the pollinators. Yeah. It might be specific to that worm, but I don't think all of their stuff is specific to just this worm. I think where they've gone and said, okay, well, let's just blanket patent a story where we can harm whatever is coming onto this plant. Let's do that, and we build it into the genetics. It's crazy. Let alone the amount of other stuff that happens when there's runoff into rivers, and the fish and the frogs and all the other insects die. The whole ecosystem is suffering.
Yes.
With that,
even if you're not close to a river, it leaches into the soil and it goes into the water table below your property where you're using this, and that then gets distributed throughout. So there's kind of the sad thing is, even though you might be an organic gardener, you might not actually have organic plants due to the fact that you have neighbors using things, and due to the fact that the water might be contaminated. So it's a big struggle, and it's a big amount of awareness that needs to be created. So that's why I wanted to clear up a few of these concepts, because people hear something and they just think bad, but they don't realize the whole concept of it.
Zonelle, you were saying about educating. Now I want to challenge Warwick a bit. Warwick, you didn't know this was coming.
No, come on then.
Talking about weird swap currency. I actually think it could be a good idea. I don't know if it's already incorporated, Zonelle, that with your kids swapping sessions, that you actually have an expert provide you with a little info booklet or something that can go out to the children where they can learn something. for instance, Warwick, bees. I see you say you've got some bee tools for big and tiny humans, but something that just, even if it just creates this bit of curiosity, and mom can then enroll them in a course or whatever if they want to know more, but that we start educating the children very specifically. We can, for instance, get somebody, a seed expert, to draw up a little booklet for the children on seeds, and a bee expert like Warwick. I think that would be a good thing to incorporate, to get this whole education of the nation. Wow. Okay. To get all this going and people to think in the right direction, and to influence the children's minds for the better. So I think that could be something that could work.
Yeah, well, it's a great point, because I used to get, when I had more time, I used to get invited to go and do a lot more, 10 years ago, I used to do a lot more work with schools. Actually, I would get invited, asked to go through and do talks at schools in the classroom, and I'd go there and I'd rock up in my CDC suit, my looking like a astronaut, or a, yeah, exactly, looking like an astronaut, but on feet firmly on planet Earth. But yeah, I used to do that. I used to do quite a few talks in the schools, and the kids used to love it, man. And the questions were quite interesting as well, because it was, there's things that you wouldn't normally. I imagine adults here have the same questions. They're just too shy to ask them.
Exactly. It's just teach the kids
exactly,
teach the
yeah.
adults.
And then the kids, exactly, they go home and they're like, oh, you won't believe what I saw today or heard today, and then you have an ambassador for life,
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And I mean, the same thing applies with the seeds. And the beauty about it is that they're mutually beneficial, aren't they? Like I said earlier on, you can't do bees without seeds, flowers.
And I see Tanya Spannenberg saying, I have a hive in an urban area. I got them to help pollinate the plants, and I found that my trees and plants are so much more productive. And that's just like exactly what you were saying now, is what Tanya is doing here now. And I don't know if Tanya wants to tell us a bit about it. We can give you an opportunity, Tanya, if you want to unmute yourself and tell us a bit how you're experiencing it. I see it's unmuting. There you go, Tanya.
So my beehive is actually in my front yard, but where I've got it situated is under a few trees. And so often when people come to visit me, they don't even notice it, because it's in a little corner, and the bees have got their pathway. And as long as you're not walking into their flight path, you don't even notice that there is a hive in the property. You can hear them now on the trees, because I've got a tree right outside the front door that's obviously in flower, and the whole tree hums. Wow. But yes, it can be nice and scary at the same time, depending on who you are. But when I got my hive 2-3 years ago, I was amazed at how much more my fruit trees were flowering, how much more tomatoes I got. It just increased everything like 2-3 times type of thing. And I did nothing. I just put
a hive down.
Put a hive down, and it's made a huge difference. Huge difference.
Well, and can you imagine, you've got the hive, you're planting veggies, and then you're planting seeds for bees that bees like the goldenrod and everything else. That
basil, forage,
echinacea.
Echinacea is a great one.
Yes.
So yes, that's a good idea.
Lavender, rosemary, also good ones, and obviously they're food and herbal staples that pretty much all of us will have in our kitchens anyway.
Yes.
In terms of like fruit bearing trees, which are obviously a little bit more difficult to grow in an urban area because space is limited, and also the time, the length of time is like 3 to 5, 7 years in some cases with some fruit trees. Not everybody's got, not everybody's got the time and necessarily the space to plant those. But to give you an example, avocados are the super beneficiaries of bees. Okay, there's a 300% increase. There was a study done in Australia where they actually they netted off avocados, a portion of the avocado, like a hectare or an acre of avocados. No pollinators were allowed to get in there, and they just let them do their thing. And Then they opened it up and had a completely open situation. And then they had ones where they had netting where there was a beehive just sitting in there. And the one with the beehive, the average one was 50 kilograms a tree. Okay, where to give you an example, and the fruit average is about 260 grams or so, 240 to 260 grams per fruit per avo. And then the one which was not a bad, it's a great harvest, right? One avo will keep you busy for a long time. 50 kilograms.
No, sure.
You don't need a lot of avo trees to keep a homestead busy or a small holding, catered for. But how's this though? The one with the one beehive within an acre of that, 100 meters of that orchard. It went from the 50 kilograms to 150 kilograms on average. Okay. There was a slight difference, obviously, because of the weight. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier before on other previous episodes. But the slight difference was that the fruit dropped by about 20%, went down to about 210 to 215 grams, give or take, per serving or per fruit. But ideally, that's the ideal situation if you're wanting to export for farmers that are doing avocados. That's ideal because it's what consumers generally want, a smaller one size serving kind of fruit out of the avos, which makes it perfect for export. But in terms of being able to handle how much we want to eat, anybody, you could have another one if you want. I mean, they're so nice, you wouldn't. So yeah, it's phenomenal. Macadamians are great. They're probably the worst off of the lot. That benefits from bees, they're about 10%. It ranges because some of the research I found in South Africa is more than that, being about 25%. But I think it really depends on the varietal, because you've got so many different kinds of varietals you can plant with different kinds of fruit trees. So they can vary because of that. But generally, macadamians are the ones I found that have the least benefit from bees pollinating them and other pollination.
Warwick?
Yeah.
I see Erica is there and she's in her garden. She had a tiny human there too.
Woohoo,
Erica, do you have any questions or you want to tell us something about your garden and what you are doing at this stage? If you do, just unmute yourself. There we go.
Morning, guys.
Hi, Erica.
Yeah. I'm actually very lucky. I'm on a farm. So I have a ginormous gardens behind me. And
Not jealous.
I'm very glad to have a bee guy on board because we actually just recently, during the course of the winter, we acquired 2 very old beehives that were neglected for about 3 years. And completely new. We've got no experience with it, so it's going to be a wild ride. They're not in a good condition at all, but the bee population, if you add that to your garden, the exponential growth you get is something that I really saw last year in my garden. I think the biggest thing with people as well is you don't just plant vegetables. If you just plant vegetables, you will get vegetables. But if you plant and integrate your normal garden into your vegetable garden, it goes to a whole nother level. And yes, I've got 2 little humans, my little 2 kids, Ben and Mia, and they plant with me every year. They grew up in my garden. I had those little swings in the high tunnels and things that they actually grew into, and they are so excited to be a part of this. I think our biggest thing with kids these days, I'm from a chefing background. That is my profession before I married a farmer. And just to see how your food that is produced is poisoning us, literally. It is what we as farmers are forced to do to be able to compete in the marketplace is absurd. And I actually spoke to Zonelle over the weekend just through voice messages. And I said, you know what, once I had my own kids and I realized how bad the food for them was, I've actually become fanatic and not raising future patients, as I would like to call it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well
Well put, actually.
Yeah, and so I've actually gone from circling my whole farm in vegetable gardens. I'm now busy with about a 20 to, 25 to 27 meter floor space that we're redoing in gardens. And I've got my very poor veg winter garden down there, looking horrible, but I'm so excited for spring. But thank you all for just doing all the seed swap. Like Zonelle said, I'm in the middle of nowhere. My closest big city is 160 kilometers away. Everything has to be brought in via couriers and things for me to be able, and I received so many blessings in my seed swap. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful,
cool.
Erica. That is
Congrats,
such a blessing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
What do you guys farm?
We do sheep, and we also do some mealies and corn and that kind of stuff, the bulk things. But we are going towards more organic things. We're going to go into hemp and trying to get into the hemp market. So, but that's a bit of a tricky one as well.
Yeah.
Where are you?
In the middle of the Free State, Northern Free State.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of sunflowers. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome to know. And then, I mean, it's phenomenal that I can hear it from people, because I've sort of preached it forever, but it's great to hear it from people actually getting results and seeing the difference between when they had bees or didn't have bees and now that they have bees. And I mean, we've, if you're interested in doing a bee course, we've got an online one. You're a bit far away from us in Centurion. We've got an online course if you're interested, and there's a lot of videos. I put on the chat thing there that if you guys want to get our bee mail series, which is articles, tips, and information about beekeeping to start everybody off, join us. You can subscribe for free. I've put the link on the chat. But what I wanted to mention is that, how many hives did you say? Did you inherit?
We have 2 hives. The one is doing phenomenally well. She is, we checked her, she is queen right. They weren't planted and they were on a very excluded part. So we're starting off fresh. The one hive we've actually had to reduce during the course of the winter because the hive space was just too much. There was too much airflow, and we get very, very cold temperatures. And we're hoping to, we actually did a hive inspection last week, and there was no new queen cells. They all look kind of happy and content at the moment, going into their honey stores for the winter. But I have noticed a lot of buzzing around me. There's always bees around me in the garden, which is fantastic. So yeah, I think it's just gonna try and build up the population and split them out as the queen cells develop.
Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic.
Well, you guys have got a lot of sunflower around you, don't you, as well?
I actually plant.
You grow sunflowers, right?
Yes, we do, and I actually do plant some myself.
Okay.
So especially for my bees.
Awesome. Yeah, they love the sunflowers. Yeah. Great,
Warwick, I'm so sad we had a problem with the link, because there was obviously an issue with the link. The guys that got on, I'm so glad you got on, but I think we would have been quite a bit more people if there wasn't a technical problem with our link today. And it's sad because we've got so much input now from the organic gardening community and the seed swappers and the bee guys, and it's just so much fun. Hopefully we can get all the people that missed it today to come back next time, and we hope that the rest of you will also come back. Erica, Tanya, Zonelle, and Lutta, we see you here often.
Thanks, Lutta.
Lutta, I see you talking about aquaponics. Aquaponics is actually something that Warwick and I have on the schedule for a next talk. Possibly. So it would be good if you join us next week again. I see you joining us every week. So it's really great to have you back. I don't know if you have something you want to say about this whole situation of seed swapping and this sense of generosity and what the bees are doing for us, etc. Is there something you would like to add?
Yes, we are struggling here to get proper seeds for our aquaponic system. I remember we bought some lettuce seeds and none of them germinated. None of them. And that's
you said
probably...
you were in Namibia, right?
No, we're in Botswana.
Botswana. Okay. Okay.
So that's a big problem to get the proper seeds. I'm not so sure whether you can help me there. Most of the seeds are coated. And I mean, we've got 4 big floating rafts where we can have 160. If we put lettuce in there, we have 160. And if they all are coated with something, I'm not so sure whether that will affect the fish. You see, because we are depending on the fish to produce the nutrients. Yeah, and I'm not so sure whether this is why we are trying to get seeds that are not coated.
You need heirloom seeds. You need to speak to Zonelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to go organic in that sense. The coatings, I don't want to put a blanket over coatings that says coatings are bad, because some coatings are good, but it depends on what it is and where you sourced from. That will influence whether those coatings are beneficial or detrimental. So there's no blanket to say like all coated seeds are bad, because certain, I actually, oh my goodness, sorry, Zonelle can't put anything in concise words. I recently had an amazing talk from a professor from a university here, that we had a talk about the coating. Well, it's not really a coating, it's more a powder added when you're planting legumes. And that powder is actually made up of a specific substance that is collected from the plants themselves. The plants themselves produce when they grow in the correct conditions. And that then facilitates the capability of those legumes to correct your soil, specifically nitrogen levels within soil. So that's why I don't want to throw a blanket over coatings and say coatings are bad. It's going to depend on what it was coated with. But typically the response from people when they do see a powdery substance or a coating, which typically is like some really weird odd pink color, or even blue. I've seen like metallic blue colors as well. I'm like, why does it need to be this color? But anyway, then people don't respond very positively to that. But that also then indicates that maybe you should educate yourself with regards to what these coatings are and whether they are then beneficial or whether they are detrimental. And then the seed company that you get it from, I see some seed companies do offer coated or raw seeds, so you can choose to get the uncoated seeds. The reason why these seeds are coated, it helps with germination, it helps with giving an extra boost to that plant when they just start growing. But as I mentioned, some of it can be bad, some of it can be good. It's about what it is. And just saying blindly it's good or bad, that's not enough. You need the actual information from the actual pack of seeds, or at least from the actual supplier of the seeds. Lettuce seeds, I know, has a very short lifespan. Even if you harvest them fresh, I believe they are done within a year, or germination drastically drops as the older, there's specifically lettuce seeds. So there's seeds that you can for like 10 years and they'll still germinate perfectly fine. But lettuce specifically tends to have a very short lifetime. So I'm wondering if you didn't per chance get an old batch of seeds and maybe that's why nothing germinated.
I mean, you depend on the expiry date on the box or on the packaging. Okay, we cannot do trial and error on the aquaponic system. We need to get the information whether it is coated and the coating is okay for aquaponics or not. If we try, we might end up with dying fish.
Dead fish.
But anyway, it works well. And my only problem that we have to cover our aquaponic system because of birds bringing in the pest. And that's a big problem. We are not spraying anything. So this is why we have to cover it. And that actually prevents the bees to come in. Or if the bees are coming in, they don't get out. So I don't want it. Yeah? So this is why we're planting outside. We've got some wicking beds outside as well, so that we can grow something outside the coverage, so that that the bees are also getting something.
That's great. Oh, thanks, Swop. On behalf of the bees.
Yes. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing, Lothar. And I just want to get back to Zonelle. Zonelle, I really appreciate you because your knowledge is as diverse as your garden. So, and So it's great to have your inputs on this call as well. Guys, do we have any other questions you would like to ask or anything else you would like to add to this? Anybody? Oh, Warwick?
Yeah, I think it's been phenomenal to have Zonelle join us today. It was great. Thanks very much. And we look forward to looking forward and I'm sure there's actually some cool synergy we can do going forward with regards to getting kids involved a bit more with the bees as well as the seeds. And then we also could, we need to probably talk more about our Seeds for Bees kind of project with you as well, just to get a bit more insights as to what kind of seeds would best, you reckon would best fall into the categories that we kind of worked out, hey, Tanya? Because we were, well, I mean,
we would love your input. We would absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be great. We were talking
I love giving my input.
Yeah, thanks. That's awesome.
and Zonelle, you've got a great community behind you. So speak to your community about this and tell them we need some inputs, and then maybe on the next call afterwards at the end we can have a bit of a discussion. Warwick, are we doing the aquaponics next week? Are we going to do it?
I think next week might be an issue because it's the month end, right? So
the one after that.
Yeah, if we can do the
one
4th.
After that.
So
it will.
September.
It's 95%. It will be about aquaponics. However, at the end of the call, we can ask everybody's input on this whole project, and we would love some input. And Zonelle, I don't know if you want to do some groundwork on your group for us, and see if there's anybody that would want to give their inputs as well on Seeds for Bees, and ideas that they would like to share with us.
And we're going to run a poll, right? We're going to run a poll for the name. For ideas around the names for the packaging or the name of the brand name, basically. So we've got a few of our own names that we are going to hold a little bit close to the chest for now. But we'd like to kind of see what people, different groups and our respective groups and people that we know and things like that would be able to contribute. And then just generate a bit of engagement, which would be awesome. So once we've got that ready, we'd love to be able to talk to you guys to put, Zonelle, maybe to put together some specific packs with you guys as well. That could be an option. But I think it's cool to share these kind of things and just talk them through, and then see how we can work around with as many people as possible. Collaboration is the new democracy.
For sure.
So the thing is with the movements that are happening, if we're not doing it, who's going to do it? The faster we can do it through more networks and more people involved, the better. Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge and input. It's been great.
Can we have Zonelle's contact details, so that, because I want to get in touch with her, because we are having over 30 different pepper types and chili types that we would like to share with other people.
Excellent.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. I like them too. I like chilies and peppers.
Okay, you're in it.
Zonelle, can you put your details in the chat at the bottom there as well?
Maybe
so
your email or something, whatever you want to share.
Your email and website or Facebook or something like that, social media stuff.
And then Warwick, I'm daring you, or I'm challenging you for like something for the kids, eh?
Okay, I hear you. I had a thought while you were mentioning that, because I've just recently had an explainer video made for another project I'm busy doing, which is just a sneak peek here quickly. It's actually a platform which will allow anybody who's doing beekeeping to list as a member on a directory, right? So if they produce honey, make beehives, make whatever the case is, on 1st of September, I'm launching this. It's going to be a listing website where anything to do with beekeeping as a beekeeper, if you either love honey or you're a honey maker or you both, if you're doing bee removals, any one of these things, providing services and products, we're going to be launching that on the 1st of September. So I had an explainer made yesterday in English, French, and now we're waiting for German. Do you think I have to do Afrikaans? Probably should, eh?
I think so.
And so, yeah, it'd be phenomenal to have a couple of, I was thinking, because now I've been through the process of having the explainer videos made, I think it's going to be a really cool idea, resource to be able to use for kids. Because books, I can do books. I can have, I can write up a book and stuff like that. But getting it all, written up parts not the problem. It's the art, I think. The artwork might be a little bit challenging getting it done. Not terribly, unless you know some cool illustrators who'd be able to collaborate. Anybody out there? I'm happy to involve.
My daughter loves illustrating.
I could help you with a German.
Ah, fantastic!
Wow.
Thanks.
From Germany.
Okay, brilliant. And but I think the explainer thing, from what I've seen is so effective because most people are visual, they get visual stuff much easier, and everybody spends time watching stuff on YouTube and Netflix or whatever it is anyway these days. So text is still there, but it's sort of old school, isn't it? I think, especially for the kids with the technology, all the stuff that they get today, it's like, if you give them a text thing and you give them a video, they're going to be like video. So I really like the idea and I accept the challenge. I'm going to take it on. Yeah, and then hopefully we can share it through with Zonelle as well and do, let the bees do their pollination throughout the different networks. Collaboration that we can do, that'd be amazing.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think something that links onto this very strongly would be discussing pests in the garden and various measures to try and control it if necessary, because even organic pesticides or organic measures sometimes do become harmful to bees. So you need to be very cognizant of how you do that. So that's the one thing that I think there's scope for. And then the other thing is seed saving, because obviously together with the seed swap, you need to collect seeds, and then to responsibly collect seeds should probably be addressed as well. Just because it's part of the concept. But that's, up to you guys whether there's interest in terms of that.
Oh, there will definitely be interest, and I think it's something we can do, Warwick.
I think so as well. Yeah, that's maybe we have we could definitely have another chat about this afterwards, for sure. I love the idea. I think it's phenomenal, especially with I think a lot more people are going to start doing homeschooling, aren't they? Some aren't, some definitely aren't, because they probably would have pulled their hair out and whatever. But I think there's out of this experience.
That's
but I think
it's
going to be.
I'm turning grade 2, and I don't even have my own kids. So yeah.
But I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to move to the homeschooling thing, and they're going to need tools and things, resources to share with their kids as well in different avenues. Around biology.
But even if they're not homeschooling, it's still important to do this education with the kids. And I think the lockdown and this scare that there was with regards to where are we going to get food from if we can't go to the shops, I think that's honestly why the seed swap did take off this time around. People were like, okay, I'll take the risk. If it works, it's great. If it doesn't work, then I guess I tried. But people were willing to take risks this time around. And the risks paid off, in my opinion. I think it went very, very well. So the education still needs to happen with the kids, whether you're homeschooling or not. You still need to spend that time. And people are realizing, you mentioned it earlier, in the 1940s to the it doesn't even till the 2000s, but most people were producing their own food, and then convenience happened. So takeaways and grocery stores and everything. Things became so accessible, and that instant gratification, the thing where humans are, is that absolute convenience. We all just fell into that hole, and suddenly food gardens disappeared, and now people realize, wow, wait, we can't be without food gardens, and you can't have food gardens without bees. So it really is, everything is interconnected.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the reasons why Tanya and I think it's one of the reasons why we actually found each other, basically. Because I was thinking of how, bees are like, okay, what else can we do with bees that'll help people in our mission, food security. And I was like, okay. And then I started looking at groups of people that were growing at home, self-sufficient, because I quite like the idea of being self-sufficient. And I follow a lot of guys online that are doing all this self, tiny homesteading and all this sort of thing as well. because it relates to, and bees are part of all of that, because you can get so many byproducts from bees, aside from getting better veg, more veg, bigger veg and fruit and food, but you can get all the other stuff. You get honey, you get propolis, it's all about keeping yourself literally sustainable, but also thriving. So it's not just about just making it, you want to be able to thrive. And to do that, bees will help. You can help the environment. You're creating all sorts of increased biodiversity, and you're able to educate people. Not just your kids are obviously the first people, if you have kids, that you would want to try and educate as well, and give a life skill to, because not only, the weirdest thing I ever heard was I watched, I think it was called Rotten. I think it was a Netflix original. I think it was that series, but it was amazing because somewhere along the line they did a study. They did a questionnaire with kids, asking them like, where does chicken come from?
Yeah. From the shop.
Where does chicken come from? No, from the shop. No, like, where does chicken come from? From the shop. And okay, what about lamb and beef? Where do your hamburgers come from? From the shop. And they're like, I was blown
kids
away.
Don't know whether carrots grow below the ground or above the ground. People don't know these things anymore.
Yeah.
Listen, I must share this with you. Sorry, Warwick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
We have dairy cows, and there's been a child come here and say, I don't drink that milk. I want the one from the bottle. It comes from the shop. I'm like, it came from a cow. So anyway, it happens.
This is the crazy thing, right? It's like the consumerism of the Western world, not just necessarily the Western world, but the consumerism of the planet has become so skewed that even the kids, I worry about the next few generations, because not only has that consumerism skewed the whole food chain, right, and the environment in a bigger picture, but the whole technology as well. I was having a conversation with my partner about this last night, who's also Tanya, and we were talking about how, and I know this is probably a little, this is off topic about seeds, but we were talking about how easy with this pandemic, how easy, literally, and I'm not taking anything away from the stress and the heartache and the losses that people may have had during this time, but how easy it has been for the world that we know to have changed like that.
Yeah. New normal.
And the new normal, it brought a lot of things up to my knowledge, up to my to the surface for me, because I was thinking to myself, well, actually, if I look back 20 years, when I talk to my kids about 20 years ago, what we were doing, 30 years ago, about what we were doing as kids, they don't now, half the stuff they don't even believe that's what happened. They don't even know about modems, which was like 2 minutes later, and somebody makes a phone call, and there goes your line, your internet drops, and you're like, what the hell? Come on, they had no clue. So to me, I think this whole thing of going back to it's not actually going back. It is just it's a way of it's providing.
It's returning to what we should have been doing all this time.
Yeah, and it's providing awareness of it's almost like, I don't even know why we should be doing this, but it seems completely necessary that we have to pull back a curtain and say, actually, kids, this is the world that you see with technology and food supply and all that. This is the world that you see, but this is the actual world that's going on behind that curtain, and explaining that. And I think that for me is also, that's a bit of a new revelation for me. I mean, I think it's a bit of a mission that I think needs to be taken up by us as guardians and caretakers of this current generation and the ones coming, because it's such a vital turning point, especially with this pandemic thing. They're going to be going back to school, and there's going to be, some places even talking about putting the kids in cages and containers and all this, and I'm like, what is that going to do to the kids?
Erica,
yes, who's that? Erica.
I just want to think we should also talk to the parents. You know, we as parents, we try to teach, we get told you have to teach your child responsibility. What is responsibility in its most rawest form? Is to be responsible for your own well-being, be responsible for you to be able to survive. We as normal South Africans, and I think people all around the world, we have given our basic necessities away to corporate, to these industrial people just making all these decisions.
Outsourcing everything. Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't, and then it becomes like, you know, out of mind, out of sight. You don't even worry about it. It comes, you go to the grocery store, you get your things. We need to try and talk to people and say, your responsibility as a human is to take care of yourself and not to let other people give you whatever you want. Take the responsibility of what you are consuming, how it has grown, what you are leaving behind for your kids. And if you do not start it small, like you say, the kids nowadays, they don't even know where it comes from. I've seen it with community members, where you start talking to them about it and they look at you going like, no, there's something wrong here. You go to Spa or you go to Checkers. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, you have to taste it. You have to feel what it does to your body to actually understand it. But the responsibility of taking ownership for yourself and what you consume is, I think, vital as well.
Yeah, great point. I agree. Lothar, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I wanted to say we have made ourselves completely dependent on the industry.
Yeah, and government.
I grew up in the post-Second World War generation, and I can't remember that we didn't have our own veggies on the table. My father used to run the garden we always had something. We always pickled stuff in. The cellar was full with food. And nowadays, it's so convenient. You just go to the shop and buy it. But the problem is, and that's what I realized here in Botswana especially, the quality of the food is deteriorating. You see, we are living close to a game reserve here, and also next to the game reserve, there's the sewage plant. And there is raw sewage going into a river, and from that river, farmers are drawing the water to grow their plants. And that is scary, because that you will find in all the hormones and the I don't know what to talk about it. You see, we have to get our kids back into what is the normal life, this independent life. My daughter studied ecology. She is now abroad somewhere, and my son has started that aquaponic system. He is absolutely behind it, the organic farming. That's what he wants to do. He wants to supply organic stuff. He's running on the side, he's running a craft brewery. And we are using the stuff from the craft brewery for our garden as well.
Yeah.
So we are just sort of recycling the whole thing.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Because I make mead with my honey as well. And we've been doing wild foraging for that. So the last thing I was wild foraging was dandelions. And they literally, because I don't have any pets at the moment, so I was literally, and I don't use any pesticides or anything in my garden, but I let the dandelions go to flower, and there were tons of them. So I picked baskets and baskets of it, put it into my mead, and I made amazing dandelion mead, which is still brewing, but it takes about 6 months before you should start really eating, drinking it. But yeah, exactly, and then the yeast, once I rack it, the lees, which is the leftover of the brewing, which is probably a lot of what your son would have had as well. When you take the lees out, not only can you use that as fertilizer, but you can also use it. What I believe I've now figured out is that you can actually use it to make a sourdough as well, because the yeast is still in there. You know, the leftovers of the yeast anyway is still in there. And I was like, this is amazing, man. I never knew this before I started making mead. And so I always tell my students, when they come and learn about, when they want to discover about beekeeping, I say to them, listen, if you think beekeeping is all you're going to do, you're going to literally only know you're going to know what you know today. You're going to walk away and think that that's all it is. I'm sorry, I'm gonna burst your bubble right now. If you're becoming a beekeeper, you're going to become that's just the start. You're going to become an ecologist. You're going to become a botanist. You're going to become a, pesticide specialist. You're going to become a crop specialist. All of these things come into play because you have to learn about all these other things as you start getting, your hands dirty, literally. And it's one of the most phenomenal things I loved about beekeeping is that it's so deep. It's broad and deep because it encumbers so many other avenues around it. And I mean, believe it or not, I think I've said before that aquaponics was a project that I was working, researching and developing different projects for different things for the same group community project in 2004. And beekeeping was one of them, but so was aquaponics. And so, yeah, that's why Tanya and I have said, and hearing that you're involved as well, we said, let's also do aquaponics because people can do that at home. It's not such a big project. If you have a small holding on homesteading, or you're doing homesteading or something like that, you can include, aquaponics in your lifestyle, really. And as a business, it can do both. Yeah.
But what we need to teach people is to be self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, no, we can't do that. We have to do this and this. It's easier to go to the shops and buy it there. Yes, of course, it is easier. But what happens if they stop supplying you? Like we had it because the lockdown in South Africa, we could get hardly anything over the border.
Yes.
Because we are depending on South Africa's food production.
Botswana, yeah.
We are completely landlocked, and our economy, or let's say the agricultural part, is not as good as in South Africa because we've got a different climate here. In winter, it's freaking cold. Now last night we had 2 degrees, and over the day we've got 25, 28 degrees.
Yeah, when
in
winter, you're getting 40, right?
Yeah, no, in summer it's 40 and more.
Now this is something that's interesting for me. Just I know we probably moving a little bit over time again, but way over.
but that shows how interesting it is.
Exactly. The one thing, something that really, and I think Zonelle and Tanya will be able to add to this as well potentially, is that think about this, guys. All of us, right? There's 7 of us today. There've been 27 of us before, and so it's carrying on. And our email list is growing, which is also pretty cool, so we can get more and more people involved. But my point is that us as sort of ambassadors in our independent little areas, not little, but independent areas, we're all sharing here, which is awesome. So we're collaborating as it is, which is great. But think about this excuse the pun, but so we are literally sowing the seeds whereby we can actually effectively change over, say, 5-10 years, the entire ecosystem or environment that we have in our networks. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is that let's take Lothal, for example. You've got some bees, you've got the aquaponics, you're now growing some stuff outside. You go and talk, your son goes to talk to 10 people at the pub, tells them what he's doing. Those 10 people at the pub or wherever it is at the restaurant, they go and tell another 10 people what they're doing. And I mean, I'm in a group in Botswana for beekeeping as well. And the stuff that I'm sharing with them for free, similar to what we're doing now as well, is they, in 10 years' time, what could that do ecologically to Botswana's food production? You understand what I'm saying? And then we pull in somebody like Zonelle, who's got the seed swaps ability, being able to share the seeds with people, not only in South Africa, but Botswana and the rest of Africa too, going forward. I mean, the phenomenal difference that we could do over 5 to 10 years could see the entire ecology of somewhere like, for example, Botswana changing from being a wholly importer of food to one that's now being able to sustain itself, which could change the weather. It could change all sorts of things on a micro and macro ability, right? So yeah, let's change the world, guys. One seed at a time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really the case. It's really what happens. About the end of 2017, I started a physical swap where people visit each other's gardens and we get some ideas and whatnot from each other and we share whatever we have in excess. The first one I hosted was in November 2017 and 2 people showed up. We're having another one tomorrow actually, and it seems like there will be around 15 to 20 people there. And that's just how it grows over time, and how the interest grows, and how this person tells that person, oh my goodness, it's so fantastic. I'm honestly of the opinion, if every single person were to grow something, it doesn't have to be a farm, it doesn't have to be tons of produce that's being produced. If everyone just grew something, we wouldn't have to go hungry or worry about whether the shops has stuff or not. That's honestly the case. But then we need to be bartering and trading and sharing with each other amongst each other in the community.
Ambassadors.
Yeah, and become ambassadors, exactly.
Warwick, Abby is dying to give feedback on a project that she showed you 3-4 weeks ago.
Go, Abby, go. Go, Abby, go. What's that? Is that your tincture?
Yeah.
Here, tell us more, please.
Now she's going to give it a shot.
So quickly, what did you do? What again? Remind us what you did. I mean, I know, but maybe the people that are watching don't know.
How long ago was it?
I have no idea, and I want to know.
Tell us.
Okay, what is it, Abby? What is it?
It's a
olive leaf.
Olive leaf tincture.
Why?
Which you made with what? with the vodka that was in Mum's bathroom for a year.
Well, lekker. Yeah, parties at your house.
All right. And olive leaf. And it's been about 4 weeks, Warwick? Is it 4 weeks?
I think so, because we did that. That's episode 2 or something, right? It was the herbal remedies or home remedies for boosting immune system. I think it was episode 2, yeah.
But look how nice and dark it's become.
I see, it's changed color, lekker.
Yeah.
Tell me something, do you guys add, Abby, do you guys add more stuff in every week, or do you leave it now? Did you leave it as one time only? One time shoe shot?
One time only.
Okay.
And you shake it just every now and then.
Give it a shake. Did you leave it in the sun? Was it in a cool, dark place?
Yes.
Cool, dark place.
Well, lekker. Okay, mooi.
Lekker.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's been dying to show
well
you.
done. Congrats.
Everybody else. She actually made the tincture on a previous talk we had, Zonelle, Tanya, and Erika. I think Lotta might have been present. But yeah, so it's nearly done. We leave it for about 6 weeks. So
yeah.
And then we can
I've got some fire cider happening that I need to strain.
I'm coming to visit.
Well, good, eh?
I received and goldenrod, and what's the other thing I heard you say just now? So I'm gonna be demanding and say I want some fire cider and I want some goldenrod, please. All right.
Can be arranged. It can be arranged.
Great.
Thank you.
Erica, that's a tincture, so it's a homemade remedy.
Yeah. Zonelle actually sent me a bottle of, I'm gonna say the word wrong, jojoba oil. The infusion.
Baobab.
Yeah, the first application, you said it was used as a moisturizer, so I tried it a couple of nights. It is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and I ordered some the calendula seeds. I'll be planting them and adding them to that as well during the end of the season.
Yeah.
Where did you order calendula? Because I'm also looking.
All right,
Seeds for Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, I found some on Seeds for Africa, so yeah, hoping that they will work.
I think.
Yes, so
I can sort calendula for you. Just send me a message so that I have track of it somewhere, because otherwise it goes in one ear and out the other. So just send it in WhatsApp that I promised you calendula as well. There was a bunch of calendula in the swap previously. I'm assuming you didn't receive any, Erika.
No, I didn't receive in mine, but I got some of your goldenrod, so I'm happy with that for my ladies for summer.
The goldenrod is has got some wonderful medicinal purposes as well. I just feel too bad to cut it when it's in flower because the bees adore it so much.
Great.
Calendula is a magical thing.
I'm really looking forward to going into the next step of doing the medicinal herb gardens as well, and specifically growing to incorporate all your tinctures. And that's one of the main reasons why we started the beekeeping as well, is because it was the highest form of natural antibiotics.
Yeah, the propolis is amazing.
The propolis is incredible.
Go back, Erica, and listen to that to that episode. You can
I
find that.
will.
I
I
don't know
will.
if you have the link, or let me put the
I
link on
haven't.
here.
No.
I'll put it on here for you guys if you want to go back and have a look at our previous links.
Will do.
But I think it would be quite cool to also, I mean, you guys are mentioning creams and moisturizers and stuff like that. So that's something we make at Beware as well. We do all natural face creams, face and skin creams, and we do a mom range. I don't know if anybody's expecting anytime soon. But yeah, we do a nipple cream and a stretch mark cream and and a baby bum cream. So, but all natural beeswax and then all natural oils and stuff like that. So there's nothing added in there, no additives, no alcohol, no water even.
Yeah, no water. Oil and water don't go together.
No, but I mean, something that's also amazing, you mentioned baobab. Now, I got marula oil, which is just also
marula oil is
phenomenal. But I think, Tanya, we need to do a talk, but perhaps on the creams as well. So we did home remedies. Okay. Maybe we need to, at some point, table a talk on what to, how to make home cosmetics, exactly. Yeah. And wound treatment. You know, so we could do like almost like a first aid
wound
kit.
Treatment is
and we could look at that because the bees have got a big role to play in that, and so do all the herbs that we're growing in gardens. Cool.
Yes.
I'll make a note
and
of that.
Herbs are so easy. Herbs kind of like just do their own thing. They you can kind of throw them in the ground and they like just happen.
Yeah.
So that's the awesome thing about herbs. And I want to say the majority of them are perennials as well. So you kind of plant them once and you're good. So yeah.
Great.
That's awesome. Cool, guys. I think that's it. We need to call it a day, but it's been an amazing session. Thanks very much. And blooming amazing.
Blooming amazing, yes.
And then, we're going to put a poll up, right, for some names for our Seeds for Bees kind of project. So look out for that. But Zonelle, thanks again for coming on board with us this week, and we look forward to having some more chats with you and collaborating as well.
We hope you join us again, and you, Erica.
And
we'd love to
Pleasure. Thanks for having.
Thanks for sharing, guys. It's been awesome.
All right.
Have a great weekend, and hopefully it gets warmer soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.